My colleagues and I at the DataWise project have worked with educators to identify the big challenges in using data to improve learning and teaching. In this exploration, we discovered something interesting. It turns out the biggest challenge for educators is not just knowing how to analyze data, but knowing how to analyze data together and to take collective action to address problems of practice. Improving learning and teaching for all students is a much bigger task than any one person could achieve alone. It requires that everyone be invested and engaged in continuous, coherent improvement. To set the stage for this work, the prepare phase of the DataWise improvement process begins with a nice wide base upon which all the other steps can rest. The first step is organize for collaborative work. This involves 3 kinds of key tasks: establishing structures, setting the tone, and taking stock. When establishing structures, you adopt an improvement process, build a strong system of teams, and make time for collaborative work. Adopting a school-wide improvement process means that you commit to a systematic approach to identifying and solving problems of teaching and learning. You rely on the process to break the work into manageable pieces and provide a common language that allows you and your colleagues to learn from one another. Another aspect of establishing structures is building a strong system of teams. Every educator at your school should be on an instructional team, a tight community dedicated to improving teaching and learning. And all of those teams should have clear lines of communication, both to one another and to the leadership team that makes school-wide decisions about instruction. The third structural task is making time for collaborative work. This means setting aside dedicated meeting time, ideally at least an hour every week, for teams to work through the steps of the improvement process. It's important to protect this time on your calendar up front so that it's there when you need it. And you will need it. Once you've established structures, you do several things that help set the tone. These tasks include set expectations for effective meetings, set norms for collaborative work, and acknowledge work style preferences. It's not enough to simply make the time for collaborative work. That time needs to be used well, so that it's clear to teachers how hours spent in meetings will help them do their jobs better. My colleague Liz City and I realized that setting expectations for effective meetings was an area in which educators were eager for support. So we drew on our own experience and on what we were learning from schools that use DataWise. This helped us get a picture of what good meetings look and feel like. We then wrote a book called MeetingWise to support educators in making the most of their collaborative time. The book shows how to identify clear and important meeting objectives and choose engaging activities in service of those objectives. It also offers tips for how to be an effective meeting facilitator and participant, and suggests strategies for addressing common dilemmas that arise in collaborative work. Another key task related to tone is setting norms for collaborative work. It's important to be explicit about ground rules for how people agree to work together. For example, when a team has a norm to take an inquiry stance, it frees members to ask lots of questions and encourages people to seek clarification before jumping to conclusions about something that someone else may have said. As you're setting norms, be sure to take the time to discuss what you will do to hold one another accountable for living by those norms. That way, the norms will have real meaning and not be just words on a page. Another way to set the tone is to acknowledge work style preferences. As your team is kicking off its shared work, learn how each of your colleagues likes to engage with a group. There are simple protocols for doing this that don't take long to do, but can have powerful long-term benefits. For example, it can be very helpful to know if one person on your team needs to know the big picture before acting, while another will feel antsy until there's some clarity about how and when important details will be ironed out. Making these preferences explicit can help you better understand your colleagues' perspectives so that you can work more effectively together. The last set of key tasks are related to taking stock. They include create a data inventory and create an inventory of instructional initiatives. Before you dive into improvement, you want to get a clear sense of what is happening now. Creating a data inventory allows you to see in one document all of the different data sources that your school is currently collecting. If you're like most schools, this list may end up being longer than you expected. But it's really important to understand the extent to which you are using each source and to begin brainstorming how you could use them more effectively. You create an inventory of instructional initiatives because, let's face it, your school has probably been working to improve for years. And over that time, many different instructional programs and policies may have piled up. Some initiatives may be working beautifully in service of student learning, and others, it might be time to revisit. Taking stock of data and initiatives early on can show you where there are gaps, where there are too many different data sources measuring the same thing, or where instructional initiatives may be working at cross purposes. Chapter 1 of the DataWise book provides guidance for addressing the many challenges you may encounter as you organize for collaborative work. It also describes the benefits of using discussion protocols and includes instructions for protocols that educators find particularly useful at this stage. Making sure that the core work of your school is tightly organized around teaching and learning is a hefty task. The DataWise arrow has a wide base because everything else that follows depends upon doing this first step well.